Yesterday I watched the state of Ohio kill my dad. I witnessed his execution along with my wife and my sister. It is difficult for me to talk about what happened. Shortly after the warden buttoned his jacket to signal the start of the execution, my dad began gasping and struggling to breathe. I watched his stomach heave. I watched him try to sit up against the straps on the gurney. I watched him repeatedly clench his fist. It appeared to me he was fighting for his life but suffocating. The agony and terror of watching my dad suffocate to death lasted more than 19 minutes. It was the most awful moment in my life to witness my dad's execution. No one should die the way my dad did, no matter the circumstances.
The execution of Dennis McGuire occurred on January 16, 2014. It was considered by many to be a botched execution. Ohio had a shortage of pentobarbital used in lethal injections due to legal issues. The drug's owner, Danish company Lundbeck, discovered the sedative was being used in the United States for capital punishment. In Danish law, the drug cannot be administered during executions, and Lundbeck discontinued selling pentobarbital in the wake of public outcry. Ohio officials used intravenous doses of the sedative, midazolam, and the painkiller, hydromorphone, to put McGuire to death. The method has been part of Ohio's execution process since 2009, though never used until this case. Joy Stewart was last seen alive on February 11, 1989, as she accepted a ride from McGuire. At the time, she was 8 months pregnant with her son Carl. Stewart's body was found the following day in a creek. She had been stabbed twice, her throat had been slit, and she was raped and sodomized. Joy bled to death in a cold field. Dennis McGuire destroyed more than one life that day. He killed a sister, a young bride, an expectant mother, a baby daughter, a friend. He killed an innocent baby boy as well. Stewart's case remained unsolved for 3 years until McGuire was arrested and later sentenced to 15 years for kidnapping and assaulting a 15-year-old girl at knife point. In an attempt to reduce his sentence, McGuire tells investigators that his brother-in-law Jerry Richardson killed Joy Stewart, and he leads them to the murder weapon on a local farm where McGuire and Richardson occasionally worked. DNA tests on biological evidence from the crime eliminates Richardson and Joy Stewart's husband as the source of the sperm and links McGuire to the rape. McGuire is convicted on aggravated murder, anal rape, and kidnapping charges and is sentenced to death. McGuire was offered a plea deal to avoid a possible death sentence but declined, insisting he was innocent. He was convicted of Joy Stewart's murder and sentenced to death. In the decades since Joy Stewart's death, the family watched as McGuire tried repeatedly to beat the system. He attempted to pin the killing on several other men, and up to the last minute threw up numerous legal roadblocks to his execution. He finally admitted to the murder in a letter to the governor the month before the scheduled execution during a bid for clemency. The bid was denied. McGuire's spiritual advisor was a witness to his execution and described how approximately 4 minutes after the injection, quote, his stomach swelled up in an unusual way as though he had a hernia, end quote. The spiritual advisor went on to recount, 11 minutes or more he was fighting for breath, and I could see both of his fists were clenched the entire time. His gasps could be heard through the glass wall that separated us. Towards the end, the gasping faded into small puffs of his mouth. It was much like a fish lying along the shore, puffing for that one gasp of air that would allow it to breathe. Time dragged on, and I was helpless to do anything, sitting helplessly by as he struggled for breath. I desperately wanted to get out of that room. It is not unheard of for an execution to take 15 minutes or even longer, but if the prisoner was physically struggling much of that time, it could be seen as cruel. 53-year-old Dennis McGuire died 26 minutes after the procedure began. There was a lot of controversy regarding the drugs used in his execution, concerned that he might feel terror, that he might suffer. However, the events preceding Joy's death, forcing her from the car, attempting to rape her vaginally, sodomizing her, choking her, stabbing her, leaving her to bleed out and die alone in a cold, dark, dirty field. I know she suffered terror and pain. I can't help but think of the strange parallels of fear being handed back to him. Dennis McGuire's final words before he took the lethal injection were to his children, "I'm going to heaven. I'll see you there when you come." His children sobbed a few feet away in a witness room as they watched him die. Joy Stewart's husband Kenny committed suicide before he was cleared of suspicion in the case. Her parents both passed away before they could see McGuire live out his sentence, and they are buried next to her. Her grave marker carries her maiden name, Morning Star. Joy and Carl were buried together.